My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E, From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all, from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready, and welcome to your F.A.T.E. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of F.A.T.E. How's everybody doing today? On today's show, I have Paul Nugent. He has a book out called Mire, Spiritual Journey into Cosmic Truth and the Dawning of a New World. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get into some deep stuff today. Paul Nugent, welcome to your F.A.T.E, my friend. How you doing today?
Well, thank you very much, Christy. I'm doing very well. I've been looking forward to having this conversation, and it's a lovely day here in Michigan, so all is good.
Well, like I said, I grew up in Michigan. I am a Michigander at heart. So what part of Michigan are you recording from?
I'm in a small town called Hazel Park, which you may know. It's a little bit north of Detroit. It's known as the Friendly City, and it seems
I do know. You know, everybody in Michigan's great. Shout out to Michiganders, man. Shout out. So I read your book, and I found it to be fascinating, fantastical, even adaptable to a movie. People would love it. I'm very excited to talk about everything that you speak of in the book. And thank you in advance for bringing it to me and my audience. And let's get into it, shall we? So this book, it is your spiritual journey from the time that you were a boy in England to coming upon this society. And can you, just so I don't flub the name of this society, can you say what the society is?
Sure, it's called the Aetheruis.
The Aetheruis Society. So it is your journey from the Aetheruis Society and coming upon this gentleman named George King, the master of this organization that is, I would say, a channeler of sorts, an interdimensional being. And let's just start at the beginning. When you speak of yourself and when you were a boy in England, you referenced several times in the book that you knew things where you were born. I found that to be interesting, and I wanted to ask you exactly what you felt like. What did that mean exactly when you were kept on referencing, I knew this before I was born? What did that mean?
That's right. The book is in two parts. In part one, it's called The Things I Knew Before I Was Born. And by saying that, I was very much embraced the concept of reincarnation. We've all lived before, and there's a certain intuitive knowledge that we all have, and you could say even, in certain cases, there's a sort of a sense of a certain destiny that we all intuitively know, and I think it's terribly important to pay attention to those things, which you could say go way back. I mean, it's part of our culture, so of knowing right from wrong. But certainly, yes, I intuitively knew certain things. We all do. We don't necessarily always pay attention to them, but I did, and by doing so, it has fundamentally directed the course of my life in the best possible way.
I had the feeling that was your meaning, is that you knew this before you were born, as in that sense. But it was good to get your interpretation, because I also feel like I have an inner knowing of things myself. I don't say it in the same way that I knew it before I was born, but I certainly feel like we all come into our lives knowing certain things deep within without having any real logical reason why we know these things. We just do. We just do. You just
Yeah,
do.
indeed. Indeed.
So the title of your book is Mire. Why what does that mean? What's the origin of the title? What exactly does that mean?
Well, Maya, Maya, is a Sanskrit word, which is the oldest language, certainly one of the, not the oldest language on the religion from the East India. Um, and it means illusion. And Maya, M-I-R-E, is like a quagmire. And so the title comes from, I mean, the book is about who and where we are, how we came to be as we are, where we are in the world today, which I think we can all see as a world full of problems. And I sort of make out also because we've gone down a cul-de-sac, we've lost this sort of far greater vision and understanding of who what we are, and we sort of are playing out in a world of not in like when I say a false world. We don't see we don't see the beauty and the greatness and the vastness of what we really are a part of. We see the things that we're sort of conditioned to see, and so we're living in this very limited way, and as a consequence of that, we've created this rather certainly not even this very dysfunctional world, as in the mind and quagmire
We
that we're
certainly
in.
are. I mean, I reference kind of a 3D matrix world where we are so hyper focused on things that don't seem to matter really in our lives. We don't know who we are. We don't know our real history. And through reading your book, it spoke to me a lot about, it makes, to me, your story makes more sense to me than what we have been taught throughout our life as far as how we've got here. And I don't think there's any historical book that has really accurately portrayed exactly who we are and how we began. And this is a very complicated story. It has many layers. And you discuss the origins of humanity and where we originated from. Can we start there and talk a little bit about the planet called Maldek and what that was and what happened?
Sure. Our understanding, and we're not I say our understanding of our brain in that sense, to the understanding of those that's serious is which is also non-profit metaphysical spiritual organization, international. We're not alone, with the theosophists, and you no doubt throughout history, but our understanding is that we came to Earth over 18 million years ago from a planet also in our solar system, which we destroyed through the intense misuse of atomic power. That planet was known as Maldek. All that remains of Maldek is the asteroid belt, which is these, floating pieces, massive pieces of floating rock between Mars and Jupiter. Now, actually, there's a tremendous growing evidence, because obviously you're sort of scientists, physicists. Some of them, or I'd say on the whole, they tend to perhaps dispute that, but there is increasing amount of evidence that's coming to light on how that actually probably was a planet. There's I don't go into it in the book, but there's one of the largest pieces of the asteroid belt is a metallic core that is found at the center of all planets. Unit physicists. And it also fits in. There was a man back in the sort of 1700s or 8 called Bode who came up with the sequence of numbers it's known as Bode's law. Actually, it wasn't there. His name to be given that was another chap. But it's using a remarkable sequence of numbers. This is what they used to find some of the outer planets in our solar system. But the planets are all sort of lined up according to this sequence of numbers. And there should be a planet exactly between Mars and Jupiter where the asteroid belt is. If there isn't, what there is the destruction. And our understanding, as I say, is we destroyed that planet over 18 million years ago. And yet you can't look at things solely in a sort of materialistic way, because fundamentally you have to look at it in spiritual. And when you look at anything in a spiritual way, in a true sense, it's all absolute oneness. And so, being a part of oneness, we couldn't be taken out of creation. Nothing could be taken. We're all an integral part of this one divine being that we tend to call God, that sprang out of nowhere and nothing. Well, then we've got the Big Bang there for 20 billion years. But even they're having trouble with that now, the James Webb Space Telescope. Because what was before that? And you go into that as well, not so much in a scientific, but more in a sort of metaphysical, spiritual way in the great outbreeding and inbreeding of God. So Maldek, which 18 odd million years ago, again, strikes us as being a very long time. In cosmic time, it's actually not very long ago. And so we needed somewhere else to reincarnate, to continue with this evolutionary journey that all of creation is making. And this Earth was approached. And all the other planets were already to evolve in our solar system. And the Earth, as a conscious, living intelligence, are far more evolved than we are. In the same way that there was a man contemplating human intelligence or any other thing, we struggle to sort of recognize, on the whole, Western man, indigenous man doesn't, he gets it. But Western man struggles to sort of appreciate that actually everything is living, including this Mother Earth. And he's withheld herself. I mean, this is the major part of all sorts, but she has withheld herself for our sake. And we've had, I'm really jumping ahead a bit here, but we've had two previous civilizations in the last 18 million years of the Mire and Atlantis, both of which we destroyed, much like we've done with Maldek, not quite so intense, through the misuse of the Torrid power. And there we were again in the middle of the last century, the end of the Second World War, once again toying with this very sacred energy within the atom for extremely negative and destructive purposes, using it. And, it was at the same time in that period, in the 50s and 60s, that, well, actually the term flying saucer became known as a flying saucer. But it was a time of intense, it was the great sort of science flying through the theory, because these beings from the higher dimensions, particularly within our own solar system, who'd watched over us since Maldek, even before Maldek, but certainly since Maldek. And here we were again, threatening not only to destroy ourselves, but threatening to destroy the planet. And so that's a very good part of the overall story.
Lemuria and Atlantis, how long ago were those civilizations destroyed? Do you have any? I don't remember you actually giving that a time frame in the book.
Well, I don't. I mean, as I do say in the book, hard evidence is scant. This is one of the things that one has to take on an intuitive sense. Although, I mean, there are references to Atlantis, well, both Atlantis and Lemuria, but, when everybody gets to the story, it's hard to sit with them, figure it all out. I think the estimate is that for Atlantis was sort of 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. And Lemuria, probably at least 1 million years ago. But again, I like to in the book, I put this into some kind of context, because science will tell us that the Earth is roughly about 4.5 billion years old, which again is a very massive period of time, difficult for us to understand. But if we were to liken that to being 24 hours, in other words, a day, when the Earth was born, Mother Earth herself came to be, then Mire, 18 odd million years ago, was the last 6 minutes, since we've been having this conversation. And Lemuria was less than 1 minute ago. And Atlantis was in the last few seconds. So it helps us to sort of wrap our heads around it and understand the time frame. It is all in the cosmic sphere, relatively recent. But yet, here we are again, of course, coming out of, during the Cold War, we went on to about the hydrogen bomb, infinitely more powerful than the atom bomb. And this is the world in which we exist. This is the Mire, the quagmire. All is that coming out of the Mire or the Mire are used, having forgotten what we really are a part of. We're a part of God. I mean, the whole thing needs to be sort of reversed 180 degrees to realize and appreciate the beauty of everything, of the wholeness of which we are a part.
Yes, I completely agree. And when you think about humanity, you talk a little bit about why we continue to go along this destructive path. And you talk about free will and the fact that we were given free will and what it has done to allow us to feel like we are separate, to induce fear, to induce this incessant need for, I'm going to say men, because you don't really see this a lot in the feminine divine. Men, this over wanting to dominate each other, wanting to feel superior to one another. Like, we can't seem to evolve past these egotistical needs to feel number one or the best or dominant or superior. And it leads to terrible outcomes. Why don't you talk a little bit about what free will, that whole concept that you go into in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because this is really the root of it all. And saying it's the root of it all. I mean, in the Western civilization and so it's made faiths, the Jewish faiths, what they know as the Abrahamic faiths, Jewish faith, Christian faiths, and Islamic faith, all go back to what we refer to, or what is referred to as the Garden of Eden. This mythological garden. Well, I'm in the case. We're not trying to sort of be clever here or anything like that, but that was Mire. That was Mire, and in God, so to speak, allows for everything, including free will. There's an allowance for free will. When we take the path of free will, the temptation, so to speak, as in the allegory of we've got the Garden of Eden, what actually happens is that we find that we see ourselves as being separate from God, separate from the wholeness, the nakedness, the shame, the embarrassment, and which we sort of try to cover up with lies. Because the sensation that arises out is a sensation of guilt, which we didn't know we had. We were it was pure innocence. And yet we chose to go down this other path, thinking God only knows what we were thinking, but thinking that what came out of it was separation, and everything has and that's at the roots. That's the roots of our ignorance, because we're ignorant of what we really are a part of. We're ignorant of the wholeness and the oneness of everything, and that has led to competition, particularly, which gets into me and mine and better than and culminating in more and ultimately with the Mire that is destroying ourselves. I mean, we're
Yes.
still at it. We're still at it, and so it's necessary to instead of using free will, which we all can do. I've got free will to, as you do, to turn off this program we all have that. I have got no temptation to do that at all, because of any choice. Because my divine will, or rather my higher will, you see, my conscience, the need is God gave us this wonderful thing in the beginning, in the get-go, you could say, of a conscience. And, it's just innate in all of us. I think one could probably go through extremes where one covers it up so much that it becomes extremely dangerous. And not only for the individual, but for those around the individual, and possibly even the world as a whole. But so long as we can keep in touch with our conscience, that inner voice of truth, of knowingness, coming back to the things that you before I was book, which is inherent, let's say, within us, then we're acting more out of a higher will, or you could even say a divine will. And that is, it's harking on, it's listening to that, eating, that will get us to get back onto the so-called straight and narrow, which are actually, though, is the path to illumination and wisdom, enlightenment.
Yes. Before we go into the Aetheruis society and we start getting into your experiences there and what you've learned and all that, you reference the Akashic records in the book a lot, and I find that an interesting topic just to bring up. It's not a huge part of the book, but it is a term that not a lot of people are aware of. It's not something that you hear often out there in mainstream. And can you tell me what those are, and explain what the Akashic records are? Akashic records. See, I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm very glad you brought it up. Well, again, this comes out of the Sanskrit. And it's how can one describe it? It's a complete record, cosmic record, of everything. It's you see, even in knowing using free will, there's still a part of us, that conscience, that knowingness, that knows that from God, there are no secrets with God. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is hidden. And that is the Akashic record. We can, temporarily trick each other, deceive each other, and lie to each other, and pretend and whatever else. But that fundamental truth is timeless. And our only way of probably, regarding it is as a record. It's a constant. It's a constant.
There are some people that say that they can access those records and actually retrieve information on a regular basis. They can tap into that sort of frequency, that realm, however their sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th sense can manage. But I always thought that the Akashic record, Akashic records was a fascinating topic, principle, and it is extremely hard to define. But the record of all that ever is and ever was is kind of what I would say it relates to.
Well, if I may just comment on that, very brief, but to be able to read the Akashic record demonstrates a highly evolved soul, a very developed soul, and a soul who is able to read the Akashic record, um, almost certainly would not reveal, and certainly not reveal on an individual basis, what was. It's too holy, it's too sacred, and so it tends to sort of be misused, perhaps as a way of showing off. One would be only a proven master would be able to read the Akashic record, and even as a proven master would be extremely cautious. They would know if it was the right time or not the right time, and probably it was never, or hardly ever, the right time to reveal that information. And in the same way, it's generally, except in very exceptional cases, wrong to, if one has a sense of another person's previous life, one should almost certainly never reveal that, and not even reveal that they know.
Interesting.
If that makes sense. So, because it's easy and popular to sort of fancy these things about. But you're dealing with, you see, whenever you're dealing with something as sacred as that, it's very, very, very rarely used, and one should be very, somewhat skeptical of what anybody is said. I mean, ask most women, and they've been told that they were, Cleopatra or something. I mean, the world is riddled with Cleopatras.
It's true. That's true.
Which actually, if you're reading about Cleopatra, you wouldn't want to have been Cleopatra. But anyway, so I just say that. It's very sacred, and it would only ever be revealed in a very mystical way, in which, if you were receiving that information, you would have to feel totally right about what was being said and who was saying it and why. Because it probably does. There's a reason that these things are locked up. Why we don't have them. Because otherwise, we go around seeking revenge on everyone. You did this to me my last time. You owe me. All that kind of stuff. No, we could be parents. So, what one reveals or conveys this information with extreme caution.
Good, no, understood, and that makes complete sense. And I think that we've lost touch with the ability to feel something is sacred and that it should not be transgressed. I think we've lost touch of that feeling in our world altogether. It seems like nothing is sacred anymore. That's what it feels like.
I love the way, I couldn't agree with you more, and I like the way you use that word, transgress. We have, and the consequence is that there are the horrible that we live in, the Mire. We've forgotten that we're part of something utterly sacred, utterly beautiful, utterly divine, utterly fantastic, utterly incredible.
Yes.
Etc., etc., etc. And it needs to be rekindled, and that's what I've attempted to do in the book, My Mind.
I love that. Let's get into your life's work in the Aetheruis Society. Aetheruis Society.
Aetheruis.
Yes. I'm so sorry.
All right, we can
full disclosure, I actually live 8 minutes from the Aetheruis Society. I live in Hollywood, and when I was reading your book and I was, finding out that it was in Hollywood and on Afton Place, and I was like, wait a second. So I Googled it, and it's literally 1.8 miles away, the Hollywood church, the spiritualist church.
Yeah, well, the American headquarters, absolutely. And people can say hello. Yes, that the Aetheruis Society has had its headquarters in Hollywood since certainly since 1960, and been on that particular site since 1965. And that's where the founder, the master yoga, Dr. George King, resided. And certainly up until he died in 1997. Well, then there's latter years. he was 100 miles north in Santa Barbara, which is where I was one of the people
Blessed.
privileged enough to be taken care of.
Well, let's start with that story of gosh, it's a detailed story, but why don't we go ahead and talk about what the Aetheruis Society is and who George King was to that society, to you in general. I feel like that's probably the next question that we should get into and discuss.
Yeah, for sure. Well, George King was born in England in place called Shropshire, county called Shropshire in England in 1919. He was very psychically gifted as a child. There's nothing particularly exceptional about that, even I would say. And then in 1939, along came the Second World War. He was 20 years of age, a single man, expected to go and fight for his country. And he would have fought for his country. He recognized, obviously, that Nazism was an evil force that, was doing him good. And, however, he knew, coming back to one's conscious and divine will, that there is a greater law which says thou shalt not kill. And he knew that was more important. I mean, that was the law to be obeyed. So he was a conscientious objector, but as I say, he recognized that the Nazis needed to be, pushed back and repelled and whatever else. And he wanted to serve. So he joined the fire brigade in London. And then along came what's known as the Blitz, which was the bombing of civilians in London. So he witnessed very much firsthand the insanity of war, and the destruction or the bombing of people in their homes, babies, children, the elderly, and he was sort of rushing into these burning, crumbling buildings to rescue these people. And as I say, you can just sort of see the madness, the humanity, the chaos of why is this world like this? And certainly during that period, in sometime in the Second World War, not immediately afterwards, he began to study and practice yoga, which was, I know it's a common word now, but back in Britain before his 50s, it wasn't. And he was very serious about it. He was practicing various forms of it, primarily what's called pranayama or yoga breathing, as well as mantra yoga and hatha yoga, for up to 8 hours a day over a 10-year period. Yeah, so he was very intense about it. And when you are that intense, and I can't speak from personal experience, most I've ever really done is 2 hours a day. And I know that 2 hours of sort of yoga, of mantra and yoga breathing and prayer, you're beginning to go quite deep, relatively speaking. But what it must be to do 8 hours, I have no idea. But you certainly are shifting your whole mind, consciousness, everything, and to do that over a 10-year period. Well, the consequence of that is that the force that we all have at the base of the spine, called the kundalini, the Sanskrit word, all of these terms are Sanskrit words, because the yogis, they understood this stuff. But the main reason we're here on Earth is to raise kundalini. And the kundalini began to rise through a channel in the spine called the Sushumna channel, opening the chakras, or the psychic centers that we all have in our aura connected to us. And he was able to raise the kundalini to the higher centers, the Christ center, and ultimately the crown center. And when one is able to do that, well, that's the goal of yoga. The yoga, again, Sanskrit word, which means union, coming back to the oneness. It's union with everything. It's union with God. It comes into a state of all-knowingness, complete consciousness, a state of divine bliss. And he was able to attain that. And yet, at the same time, It was, as I say, a time that we call war, where we went on to about the Hydrogen War, where we were testing mainly the Americans and the Soviets, the Brits and the French thrown in with. We gone mad. And as I mentioned before, it was also a time of flying saucer sightings, tremendous sightings, because there are these things from the higher dimensions of the other worlds who were going uphill, he's playing with fire again, and dealt with mankind is, getting up to mischief, as we've done in Atlantis and Lemuria and Melda. And yet they had this individual, George King, who was able to go into this very elevated state of consciousness, who was known as Samadhi. And one Saturday in May of 1954, he was in his age 35, single man, and he heard this voice. Actually, we understand he was washing dishes, and he heard a voice which said, "Prepare yourself. You are to become the voice of interplanetary parliament." Well, he'd never heard of interplanetary parliament. All he knew with his yogic experience and training was that what he'd heard was nothing imaginary. And he also knew that, having developed himself, that there was some there was some greater purpose behind it. He just didn't understand what it meant. No one was able, of course, to explain it to him. And so a week later, he went back into his apartment. He locked the door and said, "I'm not coming out of this role until I understand what that message of me, what was all about." And an Indian yogi who was very much alive at the time literally came through his locked door. Yogis can do this. They can, dematerialize and rematerialize. We all could if we knew what we were really doing. So it was as levitation. And this yoga master manifested, came through the locked door, sat opposite George King, who was in his own deep state of meditation, and explained to him what their contact had been, and gave him other yogic techniques to employ that would allow him to gain rapport, mediumship, with these higher and what degree intelligence is far more evolved intelligence, existing on the higher dimensions of the other planets. And the person who had communicated through him was named as Aetheruis. We call him the Master Aetheruis, who we understand as a Venusian master. Again, got to understand other dimensions, as there are around this earth. Where we go, will we die? Yes, the physical body is dead, but the soul, very quiet. You will vibrate to either a higher level, so-called heavens, or a lower dimension, depending on our karmic pattern, the so-called hells. And so this was George King, and with this ability to go into what we call a positive yogic somatic trance, whereby these more evolved beings could communicate through him. And that's exactly how the Aetheruis Society grew up, with most of which were recorded. And there were over 600 of these transmissions, which took place. First recorded one, I think it was probably in 1955, January of 1929, at the Caxton Hall. It's a big hall in London, where he would go. And these beings spoke through him, that were, as I say, their voice, not his voice, such that they could be physically recorded, and were, for the most part. And as I say, the Aetheruis Society has grown up around them, and exists to this present day, for the very simple reason that these teachings are incredibly profound and important. So that was George King.
So in the book, George, for lack of a better word, he kind of partners with these other interdimensional beings to take on certain operations in order to help Mother Gaia Earth in order to save humanity in energetically. There's all different types of missions that he enters into with these other interdimensional beings that saves Mother Earth, our humanity. Uh, can we talk a little bit about who he was working with? One of which you say was Jesus himself. And
That's right. In fact, it was that brought me personally, more than anything, into the Aetheruis Society, which was in United Nations. I was, meanwhile, I never heard of the Aetheruis Society. When I went through a spiritual crisis for the spiritual awakening, I was looking for answers again, the things I knew before I was born. And I'd I'd read the first time with any seriousness the Four Gospels. And it made a tremendous amount of sense to you. Okay, here is someone, Jesus Christ, who understood how you should rightly be living on this planet, what life was primarily about, how to live it correctly. And so I took all that very serious, and I maybe come back to that a little bit later, but also his Cosmic Masters and his missions, everything, there are two goalposts. One of them is Maldek. Maldek is incredibly important, this whole story, because it marks the beginning, if you like, where we fell away, the so-called Garden of Eden. And as I mentioned earlier on, in the oneness of God, so to speak, we couldn't just be destroyed, because that divine spark is in everything, including each and every one of us in every aspect of creation. So the Mother Earth, as it was approached, and she, an evolving intelligence herself, as I mentioned, agreed to accept us coming here. The consequence of that was that she had to withhold herself. She, which she did and has done for the last 6 minutes. We go back to that, 24-hour day period. But it's in it, she's endured us. And not only for those 6 minutes, but also through the destruction of Lemuria and Atlantis, all of which threw up tremendous radioactive material, threatening her, certainly the surface of her work, her corporate office. I liken it in the book to one of us being forced to not only hold our breath for a very long period of time, but to do so under duress at the same time. And by karmic law, this could not continue, because this is where the other goalpost comes in, which is Lania Care. And one needs to read the book, and I hope people will find understanding this. But Lania Care is another incredibly important aspect of this whole story. Lania Care, very briefly, which is a Hawaiian word, means immense heaven, describes a supercluster of galaxies to which all life in this Milky Way, together with about 100,000 other galaxies, is moving towards at incredible, phenomenal, accelerating speed. This is the grand scheme. This is what is really happening in this out-breathing and in-breathing of God since the Big Bang. For this to know that. And, the whole solar system, which is living, because one has to bear in mind that everything is living in this oneness of creation. It's all alike, it's all conscious, it's all interrelated. It's actually only one intelligence. There's only actually one intelligence.
And it is all connected. All of it is connected.
It's all utterly connected. And so the Earth, who'd withheld herself, was going to be given a tremendous infusion of energy so that she could get to where she should have been and would have been had it not been for the folly and madness of mankind over 18 million years ago with the destruction of Mal, which inevitably had a tremendous bearing on this whole solar system. It shouldn't have happened. It should never have happened. It happened because of the choosing of free will and the ignorance of this entity called mankind. And So in terms of this, the Earth's been given a tremendous infusion of energy that she had denied herself since Merlin, endured through Lemuria and Atlantis, was due to be given. And the consequence of that, this took place, this great cosmic initiation Rome, took place in 1964. It wasn't, that was the major aspect of it. And on July the 8th, which is why it's the holiest day in the Aetheruis calendar. And the consequence of that is that the vibrations of this earth are changing, they're quickened, and they're only going to change more and more rapidly. As the Earth, the Mother Earth, releases this higher frequency of energy, and it's having an inevitable knock-on effect on everything. And it's you can already see it beginning to play out, not only the tremendous quickening of virtually everything, but in the sort of polarization and the fragmentation and the chaos of our world. Not that she wants that, but it's why these cosmic masters have intervened to help give us some tools that we can use together with the wisdom to mitigate the fallout and the circumstances. But we need to get with the program, the spiritual program, and they've given us spiritual tools, teachings, practices, holy mountains. Holy mountains is the way used as it, that was one of the missions that he was given called Operation Starlight. And a storage supply of heightened spiritual energy that we can tap into. This coming into orbit of Earth of a satellite known as satellite number 3 that enhances all spiritual action by a factor of 3,000 times. So they're helping us to help ourselves, like a parent would love a child to help itself, but the child has been truant or trucked with or whatever, and they can't do the work for us, but they can help us do it for ourselves.
It is I say often on this show, we live in very dystopian-like times, and I almost feel it is designed that way by nefarious beings in somewhat way, because although I do feel that there is a great awakening happening on this planet, I think there are more and more people that are starting to understand that we are more powerful than we think, that we are more, that we have the ability to manifest, to co-create. We are energy, we are vibration, that we should be raising our consciousness. I think there is that thread running through, and it's starting to expand out there in the online world, especially. I also think that there is forces that I don't know where they originate. I don't know if it's from lower realms. I don't know if it's within our own society of just stupid, greedy, ignorant, rich people. I don't know. But I do know that I feel like they do whatever they can to keep people from figuring out who we are. That there is almost an intentional force that keeps us distracted, keeps us wallowing in hatred, keeps us ignorant, and keeps us from not looking within in order to figure out what and who we are. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you've given me a very big plate to digest, but I absolutely agree. We've all been hoodwinked to a large extent, and but again, as you say, we need to look within, because it begins with bravery. One of the great cosmic teachings that were given by these masters is known as the 9 freedoms, which is the evolutionary path that we're all up, culminating with solar existence. And it is this remarkable journey that we're on, first of all on Earth, to attain enlightenment. That's why we're really here. We're here to attain enlightenment, beyond that cosmic consciousness, beyond that ascension. We're here to do what Jesus demonstrated for every single one of us. There was nothing especially different. Well, it was a lot different. But he's only more evolved. We're part of that same evolutionary journey. And the first of those freedoms is bravery. is to have that bravery, the courage to honor one's own intuitive sense, because that is the beginning of freedom. And without it, well, we're still powerless. While we still allow ourselves to be, while we're still afraid, living in fear, then we're stuck. We can't do without it. And you're absolutely right. Otherwise, we totally agree that there are, there are dark forces. There are, as I mentioned, there are higher dimensions of the other planets, and there are higher dimensions around this Earth. But as I also mentioned, there are lower, because not all of us on this planet are good, saintly people. We've got a tremendous amount. We've got war. We've got hatred. We've got drugs and crime, greed. All the so-called deadly sins. And yes, it is to a certain extent, if not a very large extent, manipulate by because you can have advanced, evolved intelligence, but you can also have advanced, involved intelligence in those lower astral realms who are orchestrating and manipulating much of what takes place on the surface of this earth. And we're caught, in a way, it's a scenario of Lord of the Rings. But it's for us to sort of wake up and realize actually it's not fiction. We're part of something fantastic. And when one comes into it, then life becomes a lie. And there are these darker things who have manipulated the situation. You could say is going back to Melbourne, certainly through the Mire and Atlantis up to this present day. And a very big part of this change, this quickening that's taking place following the initiation of that, is these lower forces cannot exist in the so-called New World. I mean, part of the subtitle of the book is The Dawning of a New World. There is a dawn, a new world is emerging, not just a new age, it's a new world. We have to choose whether we're going to be a part of it. And as in that sense, the cosmic masters have helped us, not only with giving us spiritual tools, but the very important part of the story, the important part of the book, is how three adepts, three individuals took on human form in disguise, and they never, basically went out of their way at all to say who they were, and hey, look at me, I'm the dude. Because it's coming back to repeating it from sacred information. This is holy stuff. It's not banned. It's learned through initiation. And these intelligences, these three, as we refer to them as the adepts, have gone into the lower astral realms to transmute the very worst aspects, including the intelligence we've known throughout biblical times as Satan. That was the most powerful of these black magicians, dark forces. That transmutation took place. It was the primary, main reason why these three adepts came, all part of a greater cosmic plan, which is a chapter in the book. Right? Because it is all there is this greater cosmic plan. When Maldek happened, the far more evolved intelligences it couldn't fully enlighten, wonderfully depicted in the Nine Freedoms. It was like, as I again described it in the book, when a wound is incurred in the body, and in this case the body of the solar system, the rest of the body works to heal it. And these intelligences are the highly advanced, evolved intelligences in our solar system, have since worked to rectify the destruction of Malda and because we're part of something, we're part of this galaxy, we're part of the Milky Way, which is going back to Laniakea, and that's the bigger picture. And this is sort of dealing with it at the micro scale, but each and every one of us are involved. We're all part of this cosmic plan.
It is fascinating because we are so much more part of the galactic picture than what people ever assume or think or believe. there's many, many, many people on the planet that don't even believe in aliens, UFOs, the possibility of intelligence living within our arena to visit us or to be here with us. Again, there is also a growing number of people that absolutely are aware that we are not alone, that there are other galaxies, other beings, other aliens, both that are uh, of humanity's friend and humanity's foe that are out there working with us. There's many, many stories that our government has been involved with these other beings since World War II, since the 50s, and we started to muck about with all of these atomic weapons. That was when really we had the first serious interactions in our modern day life with other species and other planets. And it's really fascinating how much more complex and so much is more is going on than we would ever could possibly imagine.
It's very true. I mean, evil's been around for a long, long time. But when you say there's many people who aren't aware of these things or deny these things or dismiss these things, indeed there are. And the way the culprit masters describe it is there's a sorting of the wheat from the chaff, which is sort of biblical. However, it's not. You see, the more I suppose enlightened one becomes is it's not a case of just saying, "Well, I'm all right. I know I'm safe because I believe all this stuff, and I'm going, to because the essence of it all, yes, is love. That's the and that is the energy that the cosmic masters are offering to us, generating in an enhanced way. And it's the energy of creation, the energy of God. Although they're in sort of different frequencies, but it's still the same energy. And so we're here to help the chaff. We're here to be our brother's keeper, so to speak. Because we don't, it's, as I say, we're not out just to save our own skins. We're saying, because love will compel us to save the very worst amongst us. Because we recognize that within every one of us, there is that same divine spark, which is why the cosmic masters do it for us. They could have left us to our own devices. But the energy of love is what drives creation, actually. It's what and it only gets more and more and more incredible and fantastic. And that is a teaching beautifully, beautifully, beautifully described by the Master Jesus, coming back to Jesus, in a book called The 12 Blessings that were, as I mentioned earlier on, were communicated through George King on 12 consecutive Sundays in England in 1958. And as I say, what drew me into the Aetheruis Society, because as I say, I'd read the four Gospels. And
where can people pick up that book? Because I would like to read that book. Can people get?
Well, you can get up to the Aetheruis Society's website. All of this stuff is available from the Aetheruis Society. Mire, the 12 Blessings, and the 9 Freedoms, and certainly the 12 Blessings and the 9 Freedoms. Those are core teachings, and if they resonate, then I'd say to anyone, then you need to look further and deeper into the Aetheruis Society, and I think the person would want to anywhere, because that describe, they go to the very core of what this whole thing's about in terms of spiritual teaching.
Let me ask you this: the Aetheruis Society, how much outreach do they do to I guess you would call it educating people. I guess it could be called getting the word out. I guess it could be called all types of things. But if these foundational teachings are only available if you actually happen to come upon the society, would it not make sense to put it out to a greater audience on some other platform? Because I and there may be a very good reason why it's not. Maybe not everyone is supposed to awaken at this stage, and it is more like a calling situation, or
Well,
what would be the reason for instance, the tapes, that the the gold, the amazing, I'm sure, beyond enlightening, informative, exciting tapes that Dr. King was a part of throughout his life, and these channeling sessions with the higher realms, if that were not to be more publicized in a way that I understand the sacredness of it, but almost it seems like it could be a very great teaching tool in of sorts. Yes, I don't
well,
know.
absolutely, Christy. And that is precisely why I have
Yes,
written Mire, and I'm extremely grateful to the publisher for our collective ebooks, formerly Dole House Publishing, for
yeah,
taking it up. Um, because it's not as though the Aetheruis science ever tried to
right.
hide itself. We haven't. We've always gone out with thousands of lectures, radio shows, etc. However, the time was not right. There's a saying thing: a truth given too soon is as useless as one given too late. Um, when you start talking about Jesus coming from the higher realms of Venus and speaking through this man, Dr. George King, the vast majority of people are going to laugh, run away at the Vina and make fun of it. So, we've had an uphill challenge, such. It's not as though we haven't tried to believe it and things, of course we have. But I think there's a growing urgency in the world to actually, as well, we've had, the government, the US government, at least anyway, coming out with a revelation that actually, it's far more open. Before it's been scoffed at, it's been little green man and, excuses have been made. Well, those excuses can't be made anymore because you're having, people in the military and in all walks of life are saying things that just can't be dismissed. So it's having to be revealed. And I think that everything, they call this age the exponential age, everything is being speeded up, the good and the bad. And I think that, the teachings that have been given through George King, people will increasingly not only come across them, but will take them
Yes.
serious.
I agree with you. I think that we are at an age where people are more and more questioning what our world is. What are we doing here? What is this purpose? There has to be more than going to a job till you're 65 and then maybe getting, a retirement, maybe never retiring. And, most of us are, there's a lot of mental illness. There is a lot of physical illness, and there is a lot of extreme depression, crime, low vibrational, negative energy, hatred. All of that seems to be heightened in our world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a very depressed world,
It
very
is.
unhappy world. It's very hard. It's hard to find happiness, let alone joy. Which is what it all should. And if things certainly are speeding up, all as a consequence. All as a consequence of Mallet, all as a consequence of Lanier Fit. We need to understand, as I say, these goalposts, this framework into which we exist. It is Lord of the Rings. It is very much Lord of the Rings. And there's a calling, but it comes back to that bravery, that that intuitive sense of, hold on a minute, I've got to rethink my life because things ain't right, and what I'm being told by the media and everything else, I'm not sure I believe it anymore. in the same way. And do I really? I can't stand my job. I don't want to do it for another day, let alone the rest of my life. But at the same time, I have to work. We're caught up in this materialistic
overconsumption of
this,
things we don't need.
This soul that no longer gives us any kind of it's just it's a struggle. And the key, is to find that still small voice within, and to follow the thread, to see what is not need everybody to be serious and stuff. And maybe ultimately you will at least need everybody to the realization of beings who beyond this earth, and the earth is a living being. But that it's doesn't know any whatever you come across. When I say you, each of us as individuals come across that resonates in us, that sounds true, that we investigate, that continues to sound true. Go with it. One of my favorite sayings, and I use it at least in the book once or twice, comes from Hamlet, the play Hamlet. Like one play by one playwright, William Shakespeare, and the line is, "There's a divinity which shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will." Well, we've all rough hewed our lives in one way or another. We've all made a mess of them. And yet there's this overriding divinity, and I would call it karma.
Yes.
It's calm. It is always there, without judgment. It may seem like judgment. It isn't judgment. If there's another word for karma, it's love. That's the word for karma. That is always guiding and steering and directing us back to our true inner self, to this oneness. And so it's there for each and every single one of us. We just have to be brave enough to heed it.
You absolutely have to be someone that is not concerned with groupthink, with staying in your tribe, with a fear of being ostracized. You have to be able to be an independent thinker, to step out of the box, to listen to your interior and know that whatever lies within is your truth, and not be concerned so much about what mainstream media is filling your head with from day to day. And that does take bravery. That does take some intestinal fortitude, a level of confidence that many, honesty, 100%, that many people, there's a lot of, especially we can just go into modern day religion, the Christianity and Judaism, or you take your pick. It is all about putting giving your own power up to someone else, to something else, to fix it, to lead you through. And I think that people don't understand that is not where it's at. It's really about looking within your own power and listening to your own inner consciousness, your compass, to say that it's not about looking to somebody else to save you or praying to someone else to save you. It's about saving yourself and having the own presence of mind to be in.
Right. Well, in the 12 blessings, I think it's in the 12th blessing, which is a blessing. The 12 blessings is, as I say, we believe it was given by Jesus, not dead, not sitting anywhere at the right hand of God, and just an interplanetary intelligence like the Buddha was, like Sri Krishna was, who came to this earth to help humanity and pick up points in our evolution. And in the 12th blessing, which is a blessing to the absolute, he says, give yourself the ability to be of service, and then be of service. But first of all, as you say, we've got to heal or resolve ourselves. But I do very briefly, but as I said, the first of the freedoms is bravery. He's of the 9 freedoms. The second one is love, because what's behind that intuitive sense of honesty and truth and consciousness or conscience is love, because it has the great energy of grief, and that will lead one to be of service and coming back because you care. The fact that another person doesn't, but well, you care about everything. We care about the environment. We care about animals. We care about trees. We care about plants, butterflies, and our fellow human being, even those that may not like one's fellow human. But one will find a way to be of service in one form or another, and that is the path that will lead us to enlightenment.
Yep. Yeah,
In these days.
I believe it is all about love and service to others. And I also think that if people were to do more in service of others, they would find that it fills them up much faster and gives them a level of happiness that they may be surprised.
Well, one little aside I saw some time ago that I really like. It said, if you want happiness for an hour, if you want happiness for a day, go fishing. I think that's probably referring more to guys. Probably for women, go shopping. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. And if you want happiness for life, serve others.
Exactly.
And it's very, very true. It does have its own reward.
Absolutely. I totally believe that. Is there a, beyond Dr. King, the master, is there a head of the Aetheruis Society that is of his ilk as far as the powerful psychic channel, interdimensional being that he was? Or what is the status of your organization now without Dr. George King?
Yeah. He was the founder president. He died in 1997. And since then, we're, an international non-profit organization. We have a board of directors, international directors. We have a synod, because we also a church, so to speak. We were a spiritual organization, have services regularly. And so we are just democratically governed in that sense. But there's not even close to his caliber, ilk, whatever. He was in fact, we wouldn't just say he was a master. We now recognize, if we had that he's an avatar. He was an avatar. Who came to this earth. He was one of those three adepts I was speaking about earlier, who went into the lower astral world. I mean, it is a remarkable story.
It is.
And there's not one of us who even begins to come close. But we do our best. We aspire. We aspire to it. We recognize that's the path, that's our destiny, that's our heritage, and we do spiritual practices and practice yoga for that very purpose, but primarily to help, I guess, help humanity and awaken humanity to these greater truths.
That's amazing. And so I think that you've sort of answered, but I'm going to see what else you have to say. Is the true purpose behind you writing this book now in the year of 2024? It is to finally put this story out into the greater world, so people that are willing to hear it, that it resonates with, that it speaks to, will finally start their own path of figuring truth in this world?
Yeah, that's exactly why I wrote it. It's not as though we hadn't been putting out books. We have. And, but on the whole, they've not been, I think this is an exception in terms of being published by an organization other than the Aetheruis Society itself. I use a quote in the book from an English poet called William Blake, the beloved of you and and William Blake said, "If you tell the truth in a way that it can be understood, it will be believed." And that's what I've attempted to do with because it is a complex story. And it's all too easy to dismiss it and blow it away. It's too important. It's too sacred. It's too real. It's too profound to be blown away. It needs to be heard. It needs to be heard. So I've attempted to tell it in a way that it can be understood. And judging by you, I think I've done it rather well, because you've got a terribly good understanding.
I really, I enjoyed the book very much. I found it to be fascinating, and I found it to be true. And one of the other things that I really appreciated that you do throughout the book is that you will say something fantastical, and then you will say right after, I know this sounds crazy. I know this sounds hard to believe. I know that this seems completely off my rocker stuff here. And you basically admit that the average reader who reads this is going to think you're, out of your mind, inauthentic, lying. There's so many cynical people out there that just are so easily to dismiss people because they feel like they know more. That can't be true. There's a lack of critical thinking out there in the world in general. And what I find you to be extremely authentic. I found the book to be extremely fantastical, but I also am somebody that has been trotting down this path now for the last couple of years. So many of the concepts that you were going into, not all of them. There was a lot that I learned in this book for sure, but some of the basic concepts are threads that I've been running into when I speak to many spiritual people about metaphysics, about esoteric stuff, about energy, about oneness, about being connected, all of that. Now, I learned much more about, obviously, your specific society, the master, Dr. King, adepts. There were teachings. I didn't realize that Jesus had other books that he had put out for us to learn from. I'm interested in reading those teachings. I thought it was just so fantastical and amazing that these operations were going on around us that most humans wouldn't even completely dream of. That it seems straight out of a sci-fi novel, and quite frankly, it should be. I mean, can you imagine if they did a TV series on the operations that Dr. King did? And I know that is a very taking the sacredness, taking the importance, taking the seriousness out of this, but it also is a way to transmit it into the human consciousness in like no other, because that is the media that people absorb these days.
Yeah, well, we need to reclaim
Yes,
the sacred.
I agree.
The sense of the divine. And if we did, by a significant number of people, the world would be transformed. And in terms of, how I did write the book, I mean, yes, I'm taking people on a journey, but I need to hold their hand. And when I said they're getting squeamish, then I just need to hold their hand a little bit more firmly through that path. Hold it, don't run away, just stay with this, and take them through it, because yes, it is fantastic. But God is fantastic. It's all utterly fantastic. It's all in the 12 blessings. I need to give a sermon on this on Sunday. But which is a cosmic extension to the Sermon on the Mount. It says, not even the supreme lords of all creation, we brought all of this into manifestation. Not even the supreme lords of all creation can do justice to the picturization of the magnificence of God. with up. I mean, coming back to the James Webb Space Telescope, they're stymied. They're utterly stymied because and they're being forced. This is the irony and the humor of it, but they're being forced to accept something namely God. I mean, they're being dragged against all their wishes. But what is this unknown intelligence? Literally cannot be measured, described in any form. And that's what we're a part of. It is found we are part of something then. And it's time to step into it, and take it with full bravery, open heart, love, awe, amazement. That's our heritage. That's what is awaiting us. That's why I've written like love.
I love that. And it couldn't have come at a better time, because I do feel we are just trouncing down the same path of self-destruction. For some reason, humans can't seem to evolve past very barbaric ways of being. We're as much as we think we're highly intelligent and we're so advanced and we're technologically advanced and all of these great things, and we've created all this wealth, which I think has really been the demise, not the thing that's lifted us up. I think it's the thing that's corrupted everything, is this increasingly huge amount of wealth we have created that is just a house of cards. Amongst all of that, at the end of the day, I don't believe we are furthering ourselves down this evolutionary path of learning how to be with each other and understand each other and accept each other for who we are without our incessant need to dominate, to feel superior, to be over competitive. All of these things that are selfish, are greed. And poor Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, is just been ravaged by our lack of holding her sacred, not taking more from her than what we need, polluting her. And I mean, it is really, we are at a precipice where we are going to self-destruct yet again, or we are going to understand that there is a new path out there that we could take that is going to lead to love, to harmony, to really embracing who we are, how magical it is to be here and living on this planet at all. And I'm rooting for us. I'm rooting for us, Paul. I am. I don't know.
And I'm rooting for us, to Christy, and I'm an eternal optimist. I mean, I'm in no doubt that truth or goodness will prevail, and I think that what humanity needs to do is they need to get in touch with the things they knew before they were born, and coming back to Lord of the Rings.
I've read the book. I have all the movies on disc still. It's like my favorite. My favorite.
Well, you'll know who I mean. Who the Ents are, right? The Ents, the trees, of course. Right? I like to think of myself as an Ent. I'm a huge Ent, and you don't want to get annoyed and upset and
That's
piss
right.
us off, because we're going to come out and we're going to, we normally we're peaceful characters, but I think that we want to see this uprising of humanity, not uprising. You see, again, this is people say, well, if they exist, these UFOs, ETs, why don't they just come and hover over Los Angeles or whatever? And my answer to that is because, well, I think if that was the case, you'll remember living in Los Angeles, we had the Rodney King riots. What would come out of that after is that Einstein would become sort of rioting, looting, destruction, because, well, we know they exist, and you guys we've had enough, and we're taking over, and you get lawlessness within a very short, and you get chaos, and you get panic, and you get killing, and they don't want. That's not what they're about. we need to intuitively awake. They've been incredibly subtle. Another thing I used to be into was crop circles.
Yeah.
We've seen it, very, very subtle. These incredible formations showing up overnight. Just the artist, the brilliance. I mean, it's very subtle. It's there to awaken, and it's like these sightings. There's nothing clear and obvious that we told you so. They're pinpricks. They're causing us to sort of question and awaken, and do all of this not in a violent way. They are utterly opposed to all forms and violence. It's love, it's kindness, it's understand, all of those things. That's how it needs to be. The next revolution will be a revolution.
Well, I
of
mean,
love.
it's almost like they have to treat us as children, because that's kind of how we act in a bizarre way. We're very fearful. When you think about human behavior, we are so fearful. Everything scares us, triggers us, makes us go into our, I don't know if it's our reptilian brain that makes us go straight to fear, but it almost at every level, when somebody experiences something different, something new, something that they haven't seen, it is not curiosity, it is fear that they go to, If there was a UFO that came upon LA, it's not curiosity. People would automatically get fearful. They would be scared to death, and they're coming to,
Somewhat. I think was more in the past. I'm less sure about that now. I mean, obviously, yes, some people would be fearful, but it's sort of it's come into our culture. Unfortunately, these beings are sort of, these aliens tend to be depicted as aggressive and warlike, and but the cosmic masters, these are the Jesuses, these are the Buddhas, these are the people, they are extraterrestrial in that sense. Sort of, they're not a bizarre, is a better word for it, put it fully. And they're extremely evolved. No, I mean, that's within our own solar system. There are, goes into in the book, aggressive galaxies. We are, this Lord of the Rings conflict, is good versus evil, extends way beyond just this Earth. We're very fortunate to be a part of an extremely evolved and benevolent, not only solar system, but galaxy. But that doesn't mean to say the whole of creation.
You mentioned in the book the Gotha system, and how Gotha had to, Dr. King and the other adepts went and had to go and help them save their own system from lower vibrational evil, entities.
That's right. Yeah, very full mouth story.
Yes.
I believe it's fantastic. Sounds, but no, that's right. There are aggressive alien forces. There is this conflict. I mean, throughout creation.
What, in your opinion, in your all of your knowledge through knowing all of these really intricate operations and what's happening intergalactically, what do you feel is the main reason why what is the aim of the darker realms, lower realms? What is their goal? To take everything over, to make everything as bad as possible? What moves them? I know that the other side, love moves them, understanding, compassion, empathy, consciousness. What is the force behind the other side?
It's a really big question, and I think it's playing out throughout on this earth as well. And I think that apart from it originating from ignorance, this sort of, this adoption of free will and separation from God, but it's becoming incredibly involved. It's becoming incredibly, instead of evolve, incredibly involved. But and I think it's above everything a craving, and what's the word? An addiction to power, it's become an addiction to power. And it is playing out, has played out on this. And when I say addiction, because it never satisfies. What we know, you got more wealth.
That's
I
right.
want even more wealth. I've got more control. I want
Yep.
even more control. I want complete control. And having got control of the world, of the planet, well, now we go beyond this planet. I want control of this system, and I want control of this galaxy. And so it's an addiction. It's a lust for power. And you see, ultimately, and the Gotha system, the Gotha mission, culminates in the most magnificent way. I actually say in the book that it written up by Dr. King in the series how to use this as the greatest story ever told. And it literally was. And again, these we're talking about transmissions, actions that were communicated through Dr. George King while he was in a positive yogic somatic trance by the master Aetheruis, who was acting almost like a commentator on the action that was being played out. I mean, it is
Yes.
absolutely fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. And it's true. And it called it, God is the force of good. And goodness, the ridiculousness of it is that it can never ultimately prevail, because it's all it's a diluted aspect of the same thing called God. There's nothing that is not of God. Even the worst of the worst of the worst originated from God, and ultimately will go back to
Interesting.
God. And in the meantime, we're playing out in this scenario.
I mean, we don't even have enough time to cover the book the way it should be covered, but we
We'll read.
exactly, which is why I really encourage you to pick it up. It is not a hard read. It's not like it is it will capture you. It will capture you. It will pull you in, and it will make you think about. I've said so many times on this podcast that I don't think that we have ever been told what our real history is about who we are or where we come from. I've said it so many times. And quite frankly, this is the first guest that I've had on my show that has given me an alternative story to the history of who we are and where we came from, and from a perspective that I found to be extremely authentic and true. And it makes as crazy and as fantastical and out there as it sounds. And you're right, it does. It rings true to me. It rings more true than the stories that we have been told since I was.
I could cry, Christy. But I was trying to restrain myself. But what you've said is more than music to my
Oh.
ears. It means a lot, because this book has meant a lot.
I'm
to me.
sure.
The writing of the book has meant, it's one of the things that I knew before I was born, that it was part of my destiny, whether it's for me to write this book, to share this information, and to, it's only been out for a week or so, not even 2 weeks, and to hear someone such as yourself speak of it in that way, gosh, you actually have a drink tonight and broke the pool.
Well, I don't know a better way to wrap up the show than that. I will let you have your drink, and I say cheers to you, Paul. Well done. And I actually am thinking about going over to the Aetheruis Society and checking it out, because, like I said, I'm 10 minutes. I probably have driven by it a million times. I mean, I don't know. But I can't thank you enough for coming on. We had such an enlightening conversation that was just so informative. And I hope people at least listen to this podcast and open their mind a little bit to pick up that book and read it. Read it for yourself and see if it resonates with you at all.
Needless to say, they can get it from Amazon. But hopefully in time it'll be in bookstores as well.
I wish you nothing but success with this book, and I know it has changed me fundamentally, and I will be walking in the world with a different set of eyeballs. And I can't thank you enough. If you ever have anything else that you want to come on to talk about, I could talk about this stuff endlessly. It's fascinating to me.
Well, I'll leave that with you, Christy, when you get, sometime down the line when you got a vacancy, and delighted, would love to go on and continue it.
I mean, we really could go another hour on this topic, but we'll go ahead and leave it there, gang. Thank you, Paul Nugent. And I'm going to leave you in the show notes, I'll leave the link to the book. Pick it up, read it, investigate who you are, walk with a different lens on your eyeballs, and we will all see you on the other side. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate, guys. From atheism to enlightenment. I will see you next week. Thank you, Paul Nugent. Journey well, everyone. Bye-bye. Alrighty, gang. That is a wrap on this episode of Fate, from atheism to enlightenment. I mean, this is the first episode I've done on this sort of topic before. It was pretty epic as far as the material that we were trying to get through. And I really don't think, unless you actually read the book, you could truly understand who Master George King was, what the Aetheruis Society is, what role Paul played in it, and what is the overall mission that they have. You really, truly need to read the book and digest the material. And then, like we said in the podcast, see if it resonates with you. See if this is something that rings true to you. At the end of the day, my little inner being, my little intuition, my little thoughts were that it was true. And it sounds incredibly fantastical, magical, even outrageous. It does. And I agree with that. And 3 or 4 years ago, I would probably have disregarded it myself. I think you need to be in a certain space where you're open to hear this kind of information if you're going to hear it. And it is a space in which you finally come to an understanding that you don't really have it all figured out, and that you are open to hearing other forms of information that are not mainstream. I have certainly learned more than my fair share of things over the last 2.5 years while I've been on my own journey that would not have resonated with me just a couple of years ago, just a few years ago. And it does now. And this particular story, it my there was just nothing inside of me that didn't think that Paul was completely authentic and being true to himself and being true to me. And if you read the book, it rings true as well. Now, where does this take us? I don't know. I don't think tomorrow I'm going to go out and be involved in the Aetheruis Society. I don't think that that is my path. But what I do think is that we are on a precipice of either blowing ourselves up again or realizing who we are. And I do believe that we are much more intergalactic, and that there are other dimensions, and that there has been masters that have come down to try and illuminate us as to what and who we are. It is just, we are, when you get down to it, a very unevolved species for a myriad of reasons, some of which is not our fault, some of which is we come here and we get very much programmed to fit in a certain cog in a certain wheel, and we're supposed to run on it until we die. That's basically it. And it's very hard to think anything else when we are very easily manipulated. We are very easily pushed into a certain direction based on whatever we're feeling in that moment because we just react to our emotions. That is why advertising is such an incredibly outrageously billions and billions of dollars a year enterprise, because it works. Subliminal messages works. We are easily influenced little animals. And until we take control back of our own critical thinking skills and stop relying on someone else to tell us how to think, whether it be a social media person, the news, your pastor, your priest, quite frankly, I don't think that's the way to go either. I think you need to go on your own internal journey and figure out who you are, who you want to be, what you're doing here, what your sole purpose is, all of those things. So it's a tough pill to swallow, this story. I'm not going to lie. I was reading it. I was having moments of, come on, are you what? And he acknowledges that everyone is going to have these moments. It doesn't mean that it's any less true. It just means that, like I keep saying, there's so much more going on out there in our reality than what we really understand. And until we are shaken a little bit to our core, to awaken, to rediscover, to go through whatever that eye-opening traumatic event that kicks us into a space where we can open ourselves to new information. I don't know if it'll happen. I I certainly don't think that 1 hour and a half podcast is going to um, change everything for you, but maybe it will prompt you to get the book. It's like I think it's less than 200 pages. It goes into a lot of information in there, but it is not a 500-page very hard read. It's not. And I mean, it is some pretty fantastical Lord of the Rings kind of material that you're going to read. And I do think it should be a movie, even though it would lose its sacredness. I mean, people would, I can see the movie. I mean, people would love it. It was just beyond fiction. It was stranger than fiction, I guess you could say. Um, anyways, folks, that was a lot. It was a lot of It was a lot. I hope it doesn't um, turn you off to the possibility. Like, sometimes people go over a certain line. They're like, okay, I can't come back from here. Like, I hope that's not the case. I hope that I have listeners at this point that are willing to take that journey, to open their mind. It's only going to bring you information you've never had before, and it's going to enlighten you a little bit. So I say read the book and do your own research and figure out what resonates with you and go with your heart. It's all anybody can do in life. And that's Maggie. If you hear the dog barking, that's Maggie. Sorry about that. Anyways, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I can be reached on Instagram at F.A.T.E. podcast. Go ahead. Please do let me know what you thought about this show. This was one of a kind. I'm not sure if we're ever going to have a show that is going to go through this kind of material again, but I hope so. I really do. Let's figure it out together. Alrighty, guys. If you like what I'm saying, if you love what I'm doing here, tell a friend, like, share. You know the story. And on that note, as always, welcome to your fate, everyone. I'll see you next week. Journey well. Bye.